This is the first time where India was seen as an enabler. Usually, the the picture that India is painted on, or it's called labeled the disruptor, कि हम लोग जो भी वो करना चाहते हैं, we come and say नहीं होगा नहीं, and we will not let you do. But this is the first time where India was an enabler. And I'll tell you, there's a lot of hard work that's gone in. I have seen personally the ambassador to the WTO, Brajendra Navneet, and his team, and then the Commerce and Industries Minister, Piyush Goyal, and his team work tirelessly
Yes.
through more than 48 to 72 hours. It's been non-stop for them, and of course in the build-up also. See, this is the first time, and and here is where I'm telling you, it's not seasoned people, but this is young blood, young joint secretaries, bureaucrats, who have worked tirelessly behind the scenes to push the narrative and push those nations who wanted to control and be hegemonistic about setting the narrative. They have pushed those nations, and India has championed the cause of developing nations along with nations like China, and also China surprisingly on a lot of issues, and against China in certain issues, because it's a gamut of issues. But the Africa nations have come together. A lot of the Southeast Asian nations have come together. So, South Africa as an Africa nation has really helped. A lot of the LATAM nations have come together. So we've had largely the support out of 164 countries, the support of nearly 112 to 120 countries, and in certain cases, nearly 156 nations on a lot of issues. And what India did is, traditionally they would look at one or two clauses in one or two categories and block that or push for that. But this time we saddled a range of issues. We looked at e-commerce, we looked at fisheries, we looked at food security and public stocks and World Food Program. We looked at TRIPS waiver, and we also looked at WTO response to pandemic. So this is perhaps the first time that you have had five outcomes which have come through, where
Yes.
India has not just talked up the issue of developing nations and India per se, the interest of India per se, but it has also been able to bring these developed nations around on a lot of issues. And this is the first time a WTO meeting is happening in person in 5 years. The next one will happen in 6 months, and a lot of the agendas will be pursued further. And let me tell you, on day one, there were two consensus points which are supposed to reach. And you had the WTO DG, Ngozi, also, who's a Nigerian, and she was very driven. And she's also worked tirelessly on this. So there's a lot of credit that goes to her also, along with some of the EU nations that came through eventually. But on day one, the WTO response and TRIPS waiver was supposed to happen.
Hmm.
That consensus was supposed to be announced, because that would have set the tone for the remaining days
Right.
and some positive outcomes thereafter. But that got blocked by two nations. Switzerland, who was co-hosting along with Kazakhstan, because it happened in Geneva, and UK. And it
Okay.
was purely because of the big pharma. It was
Right.
purely to protect the interests of big pharma and that law. And that meant that on day two, that happened on Monday evening, there was no consensus that came through. Two nations blocked it and they couldn't arrive on consensus. And WTO principles are consensus, it's not majority. So it works on a principle of consensus. So everybody has to agree. Then day two, they said nothing's happening. So by the end of day two, it looked like it's all dead and buried, and they may just call it, wind it up on Wednesday itself. That was the official date that it was supposed to wind up. But then what happened is, on Tuesday evening, India got 12 other countries, 11 other countries into the green room, and they started thrashing it out clause by clause and trying to emphasize. And Piyush Goyal and Brajendra Navneet actually led these negotiations inside the green room. There was heckling parleys that happened. It went on into the wee hours and actually ended about 5 a.m. in the morning. And that's when you had the WTO DG saying we'll extend it till 3 p.m. in the afternoon. The moment they reached till 3 p.m., Thursday afternoon at 3 p.m., but it didn't stop at 3 p.m. It actually went on till 4 a.m. that day into
Okay.
Friday morning. So Piyush Goyal's press conference happened at 5 a.m. with us,
Wow.
5 a.m. Geneva. In fact, at 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. inside the WTO, the minister came to the media center for informal briefing, and you had nearly 40, 50 foreign journalists saying, "What is the India minister saying?" Because the India is driving consensus. So what is the India minister saying, and what is the possibility? So at about 1 a.m. in the morning, 12 midnight, 1 a.m., they thought that consensus has been arrived. Then there was crisis again. Then they said, oh, let's go back in. And eventually, we had five outcomes. So that perhaps encapsulates the shift that we are seeing, that India as being seen as an enabler and not as a stone pelter at the WTO anymore.
Please remember to subscribe to us and switch on the notifications for this channel. For our other social media links, more content, and to support our work, please visit citti.net. Dhanyavad. Namaskar.